Everybody, and welcome to our CirrusFM training webinar. My name is Cara and I am a part of our onboarding and training team here at Cirrus8. In this session, I'm going to be taking you through an overview of our standard facilities management platform. We are going to be covering some of our key features, which do include our administrations tool, our quote request, work orders, and also work requests submitted by our tenants. Now, before we do actually dive into the FM module itself, I am going to begin by showing you a few areas within your Cirrus8 database that are going to be relevant if you are looking for information to feed directly into your FM system. So to do that, the first thing I'm going to do here is share my screen for you. So hopefully you can see my dashboard now. Now, the first thing we are going to look at is our companies tab. And the reason we're looking in here is because if you would like to have a supplier feed through from Cirrus8 to FM, you do need to set them up in Cirrus8 first. The first thing, again, I'm going to search for one of my current suppliers. So we'll go with Lighting Melbourne. As you can see, that is my company, and I can already see that this company type is supplier. Now, just based off this front screen here, I can already see that this supplier is not enabled on FM. So if I did want to create a work order or quote request for them, I would not be able to. To have them and feed through into my CirrusFM database, what I do need to do is I will need to utilize my little pencil button here. And under company type, I need to tick the box that says enable on FM. As long as that is ticked on, they are going to feed through into your FM database for you. The other thing to note as well is if you have a company type that is a supplier, but they are also an owner or even a tenant, so a debtor, if you select more than one company type in this space here, so if I go supplier and owner, I lose that ability to enable them on FM. So if you have a supplier who is also one of your owners or tenants, please set them up as two individual companies. Now, before I save the details in this space here, I do want to scroll down to the bottom of the screen, and under account details, we also have another little box that you can tick on in relation to your FM database. So that is here where it says require valid CirrusFM work order for all invoices. Now, if this is ticked on, then what it means is if you select this supplier company to make payment to and you do not have a work order number linked, Cirrus8 will not allow you to enter that invoice. This, in my database, I like to keep mine ticked off because it does mean that anytime I enter in an invoice against this particular supplier, the system will not hinder me from entering it, even if I don't have that work order linked. So I'm going to leave mine as unticked, but again, update my details as my save button. Once I have saved, on your front screen, when you are in your company's summaries page, under your company type, that's where you'll see that this is a supplier that is now enabled on FM. So again, as long as you see that it's enabled on FM, they have fed through into your FM database and you'll be able to create work orders and quote requests for them. Now, the other item that we'll touch base on in our Cirrus8 database is jumping back on our dashboard. Under our form section, you'll also see automated invoices. Now, this is a different to that AI email that you may sign up for if you've chosen that additional service within Cirrus8, but essentially, the automated invoice section here, this is where if you do choose to allow contractors to upload invoices directly into the work order or you do it on their behalf, those invoices, once uploaded in CirrusFM, are going to feed back into Cirrus8. They will sit in this space here for you to jump in, view what the system has picked up, so the account code, property, all of that fun stuff, make sure it's correct. Once you are happy with the information and you have approved that invoice in your automated invoicing section, that will then automatically feed through to accounts payable and sit in your create payment section for you to be able to allocate funds to and pay those suppliers. So it does eliminate that need to upload an accounts payable invoice. Entering it in CirrusFM, it's going to do all of that through that computer system and sit in automated invoicing for you. Perfect. Now to get into your CirrusFM database, you will select the CirrusFM button at the top here. That will open up another tab. I already do have the tab open, so I'm going to jump across into that. and this is my CirrusFM database. Now, the first thing we're going to look at in this session is we're going to be looking at our administrations tools. Now, this area can only be accessed by your account admins. So jumping into our administrations tab here, the first thing you'll see down our subcategory is our form settings, and these are our general settings for our forms. The first thing you'll see in this space is your user views. Now, your user views allows you to set up your FM database on your preferences, and that's how you want your properties to be assigned. So right now, my portfolio type is sitting as none, which means that I do not have any restriction rules and no assignment rules. Your other options are Cirrus8 Portfolio Restricted Access, which restricts PMs to only seeing their portfolio. Cirrus8 Portfolio All Access. That is the same rule. However, there are no restrictions on being able to access information from other properties. And then you also have FM Own Portfolio, and that's set up by an admin user, and that's where you can actually assign specific properties and users. So for example, if you had a contractor who worked within your agency as a facilities manager only, you can set up an FM Own Portfolio here, and you can assign properties that you want them to manage. So they're not a PM within your Cirrus8 database, but they are the manager of the maintenance side within your CirrusFM database. I'm going to leave mine as none because I do not want any restrictions. Below that, we have our quote form and work order form defaults. Now, these are the same information, so I will just go through it in a bulk here. The first thing you'll see in both of these sections are the default number of days a contractor must reply to a quote or a work order by. Now, when we are sending quotes or work orders through CirrusFM, it is sent via an email to your contractors, and in that email, it has a link to those quotes or those work orders. These default number of days essentially are how long do you want that link to be accessible for. Now, these section in your admin portal, or in your admin side, this is the default. So this is where you set up how long you want it to be accessible for. However, when you are creating a quote or a work order, you can override that default on that case-by-case basis. So if you do need to extend it for a particular trade, you can do that when you are setting up your quotes or your work orders. Below that, we then have do not allow the creation of quotes or work orders for contractors without required insurances. Now, if this is ticked on, essentially what that means is CirrusFM will restrict you from sending quotes or even work orders to any contractors without a valid mandatory insurance. That is going to assist you with your compliance as well. If this is ticked or toggled as off, then it does mean that you can send work orders or quote requests to contractors who do not have that valid mandatory insurance. Below that, we have allow contractors to upload invoices. So as I mentioned at the start, if you would like to allow your contractors to upload invoices directly into work orders, make sure that this is ticked on. That means that when they do have that link, they can follow that, upload the invoice in there. It will then come to you, and once you've approved it, it will feed back into Cirrus8. The other option is if this is toggled as off, it means that the contractor will need to submit the invoice directly to you via an email. Require invoice upload before work order is complete. Now, if this is ticked on, it means that you do, again, need to upload an invoice into the work order before you can actually mark it as complete. In my database, I like to keep this one off just because if it is off, it means that if my contractor has done a love job and they're not going to be charging for that, I can still choose to close off that work order regardless that I do not have an invoice. Now, the last section is our auto updates, and that is to close the work order immediately after the contractor has marked as completed. So if that's marked on, then it does mean, again, essentially that the work order will be closed off immediately once the contractor has ticked completed. Again, I like to keep mine off just to ensure that if there are any issues with that work order, I have complete control as to when I would like to close that off. Perfect. Any changes within this space, remember to save. Below that, we then have our FM user configurations, and this is where you can see a list of all of the users that you currently have within your database. Now, if you do have a larger list than what I have currently, you do also have your search bar at the top here where you can search to filter down by the name or even their email address. Under that, it does give you a breakdown of the name, email, that particular person's role, as well as their assignment date. To the right-hand side, these are our action buttons. Now, our first action button is to either set this particular user as an administrator or anyone who is currently sitting as an administrator, we can also remove them. So anyone with the cross through it is an admin. Anyone with the little tie is currently just sitting as a facilities manager. So they do not have access to what we're currently seeing. The other option you have is this little pencil icon here, which is to edit your user configurations. Editing your user configurations allows you to enter in things such as their mobile or telephone number, but it also allows you to set up any approval types. Now, with your approval type, within my database, I have no limit, which means that any of my user configs, they are able to create any type of work order and set up those costs. They do not need to seek a secondary approval to create them. Your other options are always needs approval. So anytime this person would try to create a work order, regardless of the price, they need to seek somebody else's approval before that's live. And the other option, or the last option, is has limit. Now with has limit, it allows you to set up that approval limit. What that essentially does is if I pop in here, say $1,000, Stephanie is allowed to create work orders up until that $1,000. Once that has been reached, she would then need to seek approval before she can submit any further work orders within the database. Again, I like to leave everybody as no limit just so they can all create as much as they need. Any changes, again, save, otherwise you can close this down. Our next subcategory is our agent details. Now, this is where you'll see the general details of your agency. Always please double check your company details and the contact details, as well as your address and your logo. Now, with your terms, these are set up by Cirrus8. So when we create your database, we will give you a default set of terms. These can be modified. So if you would like to change the content, you can type anywhere within this provided box and then update as your save button. And you also have the ability to attach any additional terms and conditions as long as it is a PDF file. The last section within our agent details are our global notes. Now, your global notes are going to appear at the bottom of all quotes and work orders created within your database, regardless of the property or even the contractor. This is where things such as if you have a reference number that needs to be met by each and every one of your contractors for all properties, you can pop that in here, or even if it is letting them know who exactly the invoices need to be sent to. If it's an alternative email, you can pop that in here. Our next subcategory is our emails, and this is where you can see which email address your communications are currently being sent from. If you do want to set up your own domain, please ensure that your SPF records have been set up, and then you can discuss that linking process with our support team. You'll also then be able to look at your logs. So again, these are your email logs, so anything that has been sent out from your system. You have your search bar along the top here, so that is where you can search down via things such as the contractor's name if you would like. And you also have the ability to show failed only. Now, because I am working with a test database, all of mine do fail, so I won't tick that box on. But as you can see, you have your contractor information, transaction reference number, the transaction type, so is it a quote or a work order, who these were sent from, what that subject was as well, and again, that status. So that's where you can see if it was sent or if it has failed. Bounced emails are any emails that have bounced back. Again, you do have your search bar at the top here if you would like to filter down if you do have a large list. And the last option here is our mail schedule. Now, your mail schedule is going to show any repeating work orders with the emails ready to be sent on those days for the work. So as you can see, again, in this space, I do have my search bars along the top here. I can select my transaction type as either my work order or the quotes. You can show the ones that are repeating, sorry, show the ones that are completed as well as the ones that are just repeating. Again, it will give you the breakdown of your information. So I can see that I do have 3 work orders, what contractors they are for, when these are scheduled to be sent out, and also when they have been created. If there is a completion date, so if there is a stop date on, sorry, if there is a stop date on these emails, you'll see them in this space here as well. The next section down is our insurance setup. So your insurance setup section, this can actually be utilized in conjunction with the option to not allow the creation of your quotes or work orders for contractors without that valid mandatory insurance. This is where you would set up that mandatory insurance. Now, to be able to submit any insurances within your database, so to update any contractors' insurances and put them into your FM database, you first need to have your templates set up. And this is where we will be creating templates. With your templates here, I will show in a moment how we will create them, but I will give you a quick navigation around this screen just to show you what yours essentially will look like once you do have some templates set up if they are not already in there. So as you can see, you'll have the description of your templates as well as that minimum coverage. If they do fall under a particular insurance category, you will see them in this space here. You then will be able to see who they were created by. Are they mandatory insurances? So again, this is going to work in conjunction with your other option. Are they currently active? And then you also have your action buttons. Now, our first action button is to edit. So that allows me to edit this particular insurance template. I can remove this template. So if that insurance configuration is no longer required, I can remove that or deactivate that. And the other option down here is to reactivate that. So any that have been created that we've removed but we do need back, I can come in here and reactivate them. Now, to create an insurance template, we will start by selecting to add insurance template. The first thing in this place that you'll need to enter in is the description. So for today, I'm going to go with workers' comp. You then have your minimum limit. Now, essentially, if this coverage does not meet this minimum limit, it's not going to be accepted as valid insurance within your database. So all of your contractors must have an insurance up to this particular limit. For today, as we have our workers' comp, I'm just going to say $10 million. Under that, we have our category. Now, with your insurance categories, these will be blank as a default. However, you can utilize your little plus button here to create a new insurance category specific for these insurance templates that you may be setting up. Below that, we have our insurance options. So the first one is to set as mandatory. So again, this is going to ensure that all contractors must have this insurance within our database. This also can work in conjunction with your other form setting to not allow that creation of work orders work orders or quote requests without this particular insurance category. If this is off, then it does become or is marked as an optional insurance within your FM database. Needs to be reviewed. Now, if this is on, what it means is the contractor will receive an email to go in and use this template to submit their insurance. Once they do submit that, you will then need to go in and review and approve that insurance to mark it as valid within your database. If this is off, then as long as they meet their minimum limit, the system will automatically mark this as valid within your database. The last option here is to remind contractors. Now that actually allows you, if this is turned on, it allows you to set up how many days before the expiry date of their insurance for these contractors that you want the system to contact them. So if I would like the contractors to be contacted at least 30 days prior to their expiry of their insurance via the system, I can do that by popping in the 30 here, and then a month out, the system will contact them for you via email. If this is off, then it means that it will not contact them. So you will need to keep on top of those expiry dates just to ensure if they are not providing you with the new policies. Under that, we have our insurance checklist. Now, this is where it allows you to actually set up tick boxes within the template that are required to be ticked off before the insurance can actually be submitted. So this is where if I would like my contractors to double check some additional items when they are entering in their insurance templates, or sorry, their insurance policies, I can add them in here. So for example, if I wanted them to check that their ABN matches, I can start to type that here as the name, and then I can also put that into the description if I would like, or I can feed onto that description. Once I'm happy with my first checklist, I'll select to add. Again, that will then become a line item for you. You can delete at any time if you've made a mistake. Otherwise, you can also create as many of these little tick box checklists as you would like. Once you are happy with the policy, you then can select to save. I do already have a workers' comp, so I'm not going to, so I'm just going to close that off. The next subcategory down is our agency communication. Now, with your agency communication, this is where you can attach a file that will go out anytime you send a quote or a work order out of your system to any of your contractors. So as you can see in my agency communications, I currently have a contractor's guide on how to use FM, but essentially, so anytime I send a quote or a work order, all of my contractors will see this particular document. To add in any new documents, you'll select to upload your file here. Once you do that, you have the ability to pop in the title and the description. When we discuss our external downloads, that is something that we'll go through at our later in this session. But that is where if you would like this to be accessible via your external downloads, you can toggle that on. And you can also choose to hide from contractor. Now, hide from contractor, if this is ticked on, it means that the file that you are going to upload is not accessible via them. So if you would like your contractors not to see that, make sure you toggle this across before you select and upload any attachments. Perfect. Now, the next tab we are going to go into is our contractors tab, and this is going to be accessible for all of our admin users as well as any facilities manager users within your database. So everybody should be able to see this tab. Within your contractors tab, again, these are all the contractors that have pulled through from Cirrus8, so everybody that you have marked as enabled on CirrusFM. You will see a list of all of your contractors. You also do have your search bar along the top here. So that is where you can filter down via things such as their name or even their contractors' codes. Under that, it does give you a breakdown of the code, the name, what type of contractor they are, as well as their address. To the right-hand side, we do have a couple of action buttons. So the first action button you have here is your user accounts. Your user accounts are where you can see the details of these contractors if they are using the supplier portal. If they are not, you will see that it is a blank as such. Otherwise, as you can see, I do have these little icons here under my user accounts, and that's just an indication that I've sent an invitation to my contractors to utilize their portal. Again, this is a test database, so it hasn't gone to anywhere, so it will sit looking as is for me. The next action buttons we have are our insurances. Now, with your insurances in this space, they are broken down into two categories. The first category being our red category, which indicates that we do not have a copy of this particular contractor's insurance or it has expired. And the second category is green, which means that we do have valid insurance for this particular contractor. Now you can click on the green icon here and it will provide you on-screen information to that contractor's insurance. So as you can see, this contractor has their required insurance of public liability, and they've also taken out their optional workers' comp coverage and they've provided that to us. Now your action buttons within this space are to either view the history. So that's where you can see a history of all of these policies when we do update them for the public liability for that contractor. And you also can view the details of the current policy that you have on file for this contractor. Coming out of that, with your contractors tab as well, if you would like to open up any of your contractors' cards or open up them as a whole, you can do that by clicking anywhere in the line item and it will take you into this next portal. Now, in your contractor's card, as you can see, the first thing you'll have here is your contacts field. Now, you can create a new contact within your contacts in CirrusFM. However, CirrusFM does not speak to Cirrus8. So if you do have a phone number or an email address that you need to add in for any of your contractors, please do that in Cirrus8. That will then feed through into CirrusFM and sit here for you. If you put it in CirrusFM, it just stays in CirrusFM. So if you need it to be accessible in both databases, just pop it in Cirrus8. In your contractors, as you can see, you'll be able to see their name, their email address, are they the primary contact, and also any of those connected accounts. So they're using the supplier portal. Right now, again, you can see I have that one invitation that has been sent to Daniel. Now, your action buttons in this space are to resend that account invitation. So if I do want to continue to resend that, I can. I can edit the information for Daniel, but again, I would recommend to do that in Cirrus8. I can remove this contact from that account. So if I no longer want Daniel to have access to create their own supplier portal, I can remove them here. And again, I can also delete them entirely. Now, our next subcategory is our insurances, and this is the insurance for your particular suppliers. So again, this is where you'll see their insurance policies. So what is our required insurance and also the optional ones. Now, in this space, we do have a couple of options or action buttons that we can utilize. Now, the first one you'll see is to request our insurance review. What that essentially does is it allows you to send an email directly from this page to the contractors. They will then be able to utilize that template that we've created within admin to enter in their policies. Now, again, unless you have your insurance policies set up or your insurance templates set up in admin, you will not be able to utilize this functionality because you do need that template to update or enter in any of your policies for. Your other action buttons, again, in this space are, again, to view that history, view the current policy, and you can also update. So if you have a contractor that is not too tech savvy, but they have provided you with the policy via email, you can actually enter in the policy on their behalf by coming into their card and then selecting update. That will then provide you with an on-screen template. So this is essentially what that contractor will see as well. If you are entering on their behalf, you are going to start with the policy number. You then have your insurer name. Now, it does not have the little asterisk, so if you are not aware of the insurer name, you can leave this one as blank. You do have your minimum limit, and again, that has the asterisk, so it is required field. It will also let you know underneath what that required minimum limit is. So as long as this policy does meet that 20 million, it will be accepted as valid if I have not had that review on. 1, 2, 3, perfect. You then have your from and to date. So this is the dates of the policy. I'm just going to make up a year's for today. Under that, we then have our insurance checklist. So again, these are those little tick boxes that I've created within the template itself. And this is what it will appear to you as well as the contractor. So as you can see, it has ABN, which is asked me to check that that matches. And then also the dates, make sure they are within a valid period. As long as I'm happy that I've completed both, I can tick my little boxes here. I then have the ability to attach any insurance attachments. So that is where you would attach the policy by utilizing the plus button and getting that or retrieving that from your desktop. Once you have entered in that policy, as you can see, it does become a line item, and you can see here the name, who it was uploaded by, and when. Your action buttons are also to download that file, preview the file, or delete if it's no longer applicable. Before you do submit your insurance policy or before the contractor submits the insurance policy, they also must declare that the document and information uploaded is true and correct. By ticking that box on, they then will be able to submit. If they have not ticked the box, it would not allow them to submit the policy. Once that has been saved, as you can see, doing it on their behalf lets me know it's now been saved. And if I wanted to go and view, this is what the policy is going to show. So it's going to let me know what the information is. I've checked my boxes, and I can also download that copy if needed. Our next subcategory is our transaction. So this is where you can see the transaction history against this contractor. In this space, you do again have some filtering tools along the top, which are to filter via your work order, quotes, or even requests. You can choose to select your status. So is this currently pending approval, contractors approved, or has it expired? You can also filter via the keywords or even that priority. And now in this space, it is going to show all transactions for your contractor, regardless of the property. Same with your repeating work order section. This is going to show us all of the repeating work orders for our contractor, regardless of the property. Again, in this space, you do have your filtering tools along the top. Otherwise, it will give you a breakdown of all of your repeating work orders. Now, with your repeating work orders, it does not provide much information on screen just here as to what this is repeating for. So if you are confused as to what this monthly repeating work order is, you can hover anywhere in the line item and it will provide on-screen information to let you know that's repeating for gardening. Our next subcategory is our documents, and this is where you can add in any documents relating to this contractor, such again as my price list and my contractor's guide as well. If you would like to upload a new file, again, you'll select to upload file. The next section is our agency communication. So again, this is all the communication that has pulled through from your admin side. So anything entered into your administration under agency communication, you'll be able to see that across all of your contractors within your database. The last section we have here is our contractor's notes. Now, with your contractor's notes, you do have two separate types of contractor notes. The first one here is your reference notes. What that essentially does is that is a note that is going to appear at the bottom of all of your work orders for this contractor. So if there is a specific reference number, you need them to quote on all of their work orders or invoices, you can add that as a note here by typing in the box and then selecting to add. Your other option is also a prompt note. Now, your prompt notes are internal use only. They will appear on screen for you whenever you choose to select this supplier for a quote or a work order. That is where if you have a contractor that is going on holidays for an extended period of time, you can add that in here as a note. So again, anytime you select a quote or a work order and select this contractor, you'll see that on screen and you will then remember to maybe choose a different person. Perfect. Now, the next tab we are going to jump into is our properties field. Now, again, your properties field will be accessible via all of your contractors, all of your staff within your database. And again, these are all of the properties that have fed through from your Cirrus8 database. You do have your filtering tool along the top here to filter via the code or the property address. Again, it does break it down by the code, the name, and that address. With your properties, just like our contractors, if you would like to select into your property card, click anywhere in the line item and it will open up that card for you. Now, the first thing you'll notice in your card as well on the left-hand side here, now, if you have created a property image, it will be present in this space here. It will also be visible on your owner's portal as well if you have uploaded that within Cirrus8. Within your properties card, the first thing you are going to see is your tenants. And again, these all do pull through from Cirrus8. Your other action button that you do have in your first section here is your subscribe button. Now, essentially what your subscribe button allows you to do is if you are not the property manager for this particular property, but you do want to receive updates on the property, such as any diary reminders, you can subscribe to the property here, and that will then send those diary reminders to yourself as well as the property manager. Our next subcategory is our contacts. So again, these all do pull through from Cirrus8. If you do need to create any contacts, please do it in Cirrus8 rather than CirrusFM, just so it's going to show up in your two databases. Your next section is your preferred contractors. Now, if you have a owner that likes a specific electrician, for example, you can set that electrician up as a preferred contractor on the property. So essentially, anytime that you do create a work order or a quote request, your preferred contractors for that property will appear straight away. It is something you can override on the work orders or quote requests section as well. Now, currently, as you can see, I do have 4 contractors that are preferred. However, if I would like to add in any additional ones, I can do that by selecting to add contractors. That is then going to pull through a list of all of the contractors I currently have within my database. In this space, if I would like to add in more than one, I can do that by ticking on the little tick boxes down the side and then selecting. As you can see, it's added those contractors to my preferred. Now, with any of your preferred contractors at any point, if you do need to remove any of them, you can do that again by ticking the side boxes and then selecting to remove those contractors. Perfect. Our next section is our assets. Now, with your assets section here, this is where you can create any assets that are in relevance to the property. So, for example, as you can see, I have a HVAC on this property. This is also where you can create assets and also then create things such as your external links or even work orders relating to those assets. So to create a new asset, I am going to just show you the navigations, but I won't save it. But how you will create a new asset is you are going to select create new asset. That will bring you into this form where you'll need to enter in the details. Now, again, all details that do need to be entered in are the ones with the little asterisks here. If they do not have an asterisk, you don't need to enter it in if you're not sure of that data. The first thing you'll start with is your asset code. So I could start with HVAC, for example. You then have your description, which I'm just going to say HVAC as well. Now, with your asset type, essentially when you are creating any assets for the first time, this drop-down menu will be blank as a default. And to create a new asset, you'll utilize the little plus button, pop in your asset, type name, and then submit. Your make, model, and serial number, they are not required fields. So if you are not sure of those information or that data, you can leave that as blank. Your required date is required. Now, it will default to being the date you are creating this particular asset. So please ensure you are changing as needed. So I might say 24. Installation date is not a required field, but again, it does default to being the day you are creating this asset. So if you are unsure, you can just remove it or you can just pop it in as the acquired date. You then have your status. Now, again, with your status, you have a couple of options. You can choose in repair, in use, out of service, or disposed. You also do have your little plus button here. So if there is a different type of status that's not present in that drop-down menu, you can utilize the plus button to add that one in. Lifespan, expected replacement date, and replacement value, they are not required fields. So if you are unsure of that information, again, leave that blank. Your hidden on contractor. Now, what that essentially does, again, is if you have any documents or images relating to this HVAC that you do want to upload, if you do not want them to be accessible to the contractors, make sure you toggle this on before uploading that. Once you are happy with what you've entered in with your asset here, you then can select to save. Now, again, I'm not going to save that, so I'm just going to scroll back up and move down my subcategory to my transactions. In your transactions, these are the transaction histories against the property. So regardless of your contractor, these are all of my transaction histories. Again, at the top here, we do have some action buttons. So that's where you can see and filter via your work order, quote, or request. You can select the status, you can search your keywords, or you can also select those priorities. So are they medium, low, high, or critical? Again, it will give you a breakdown of all of those transactions. So what they are, what those descriptions are, as well as those contractors. Our next section, again, is your repeating work orders. So these are all of the repeating work orders we have for this property, regardless of our contractor. Again, in this space, if you are unsure as to what they are repeating for, you can hover anywhere over the line item and it will tell you on screen it is repeating for gardening. Our next section is our building notes. So again, just like our contractors notes, there are two separate types of notes. We have our reference notes, which are going to display on all quotes and work orders to all contractors for this property. So essentially that's where if you do have an alarm code, you can add that one in here. Your prop notes, again, are that internal use. So they are going to appear on screen for you anytime you select this property for a quote or a work order. So that's where things such as if there is a approval limit that the owner has provided me, I can create that as a note here. So anytime I'm creating a work order or a quote, I can ensure I'm aware of that approval limit. Now, our last subcategory for our properties tab is our documents and registries. This is where you can add in any documents relating to this property, such as any building plans or even your strata plan. You can add that in here. And your registries, that is where you can upload any registries that are relating to this property, such as things like an asbestos registry. Perfect. The next tab we are going to go into is our dashboard. So jumping back onto the dashboard, we are going to be clicking on the word dashboard. Unlike Cirrus 8, you cannot click on the logo. You'll need to actually click on the word dashboard. Now, your dashboard within CirrusFM is where you are able to track what you currently have. So as you can see, I can track via either my work orders or my quotes. I can also choose to show anything that is sitting as a draft. If I'm sitting with my quotes or my work orders, I can also choose to track what I have today, within 2 days, within a week, or all time. It will then give me a breakdown of everything that I currently have pending. So as you can see here, or what I'm working on. So as you can see here, I have my property, my contractors, when these are required by, and then also what those statuses are. Below that, we then have our pie graph. So in your pie graph, this is where you can see a breakdown of your properties that are utilized the most when it comes to maintenance. So the ones that you pick on the most, what the contractors are that you utilize the most, as well as those services. Now, from your dashboard, you also have the ability to create a new quote or create a new work order. Mind you as well, when you are creating a work order within CirrusFM, you do not need to create a quote first. If you would like to create a work order, you can just click straight into creating new work order. For today's training purposes, I am going to create a new quote and then follow that up by creating a work order based off of that quote. So to create a new quote, I am going to click on this button here. That is going to bring me into my 3-step process. Now, our first step is our quote details. In our quote details, the first thing I need to pick up is my property. So again, utilizing the drop-down menu, I'll select the relevant property. You can scroll with your mouse if you would like, and you also have the ability to start to type in the code if you need to filter down via the code to find the property. I'm just going to go with the top one. As you can see, once I do select my property, that reference note is going to appear. That reference note is going to appear on screen for me to, again, double check with the owner if it's going to be over $500. Oh, sorry. Press the wrong button. Cool. You then have your tenant. Now, your tenant is not a required field. Sorry. So if this work order is only in relation to the property, you do not have to select a tenant. If it is in relation to the tenant, you can utilize the drop-down menu to select the correct tenant. I'm going to go with Bloody X for today. Once I have selected the property and the tenant, I then have my contractor must reply by. Now, that is the default set of days that we've created within admin, but this is where you can override that. So your contractor must reply by date how long your contractor has access to that link. If I would like to override that, seeing right now it's about 14 days, if I would like to give that contractor 21 days because I know they are a little bit slack, I can do that by either typing in the box here or utilizing the calendar icon to select my 14 or 21 days. From there, you do need to select your priority. So is this job priority low, medium, high, or critical? I'm going to go with low, and then I'm going to select to add line. Now, selecting to add line is where you are going to be popping in the basic description of this job. So as you can see, you'll start with a description, which can be something such as gardening, for example. Sorry. Perfect. Required by date. Now, that's when you require these works to be completed by. It will default to being the date you are creating the work order or the quote request. So again, utilize the little icons here or the calendar to change that date. So I'm going to send it out today, but I need it to be completed within 2 weeks. Your asset. Now, if you have an asset that is set up on the property, you can utilize the drop-down menu to select that asset if it is relevant to this work order. Because this is gardening, my aircon is not relevant, so I will not select that. You then have your service category, service from and to date, as well as our pay date. Now, none of this is a required field. As you can see, it does not have your little red asterisks. However, this is where you can start to filter down a little further and also enter in information that will feed through for your invoicing purposes. The first thing you'll see here is your service category and your service. Now, these two items are set up in your services tab along the top here, and that's where you can create things such as your cleaning services, your gardening services, a fire service, or even things like a lift maintenance servicing. If I utilize my category drop-down menu, as you can see, I do have a gardening service, so I can pick that up. I then will select the service at gardening and lawns. Again, from and to date, they are not required, so I'm not going to pop them in. However, I do have my paid by. Now, again, this is not a required service, but this is where I can mark who is going to be responsible for this cost, and it will then help me with my invoicing purposes. So again, if I have selected my categories and then say it's owner, it's going to automatically pick up that owner code that is in relevance to that category for me. And if I am then uploading an invoice directly into the work order to feed back into Cirrus8, this account code is going to be present in Cirrus8 for me for, again, that invoicing purposes. Again, they are not required fields if you would not like to enter them in. If I would like to choose tenants, again, that category is going to pick up the relevant code, and same with my outgoings, it's going to pick up that relevant code for me. For today, I'm going to say it's owner, so it's my 4582, and then I'm going to add that line as my save button. Once I have added my basic description of the job, as you can see, it gives you a line information as the description, service category, who it's paid by, as well as when it's required by. You do have the ability at any point here to edit if needed and also delete if it's no longer applicable. Now, under that, we also have our additional details. Your additional details are more details of the job. So this is where, if you have your gardening, for example, this is where I can pop in information to that contractor to tell them exactly what I want them to clean up when they are out doing their gardening works. Otherwise, again, it is not a required field, so you can leave this blank. Below that, your building notes are going to appear, so the ones that are global in your admin, as well as any building notes you've created against that property. Once you are happy with everything you've entered into line 1, you'll then move on to step 2. Sorry. Step 2 are where we are going to select our contractors and any attachments. Now, to add in any of your contractors, we are going to add contractors here. As you can see, I do have preferred contractors on this property, and they are all appearing for me. I can override that appearance by unticking this box here, and it will then show me all the contractors I currently have within my database. Now, as this is a quote request, I am going to send this to multiple contractors, and to do that, I can just select on the side category box here. And as you can see, I might just go with 2 actually. It will pick up those 2, so Excel Cleaning and Lovely Land. Once I'm happy with my selection, I will then select. Any prompt notes for those contractors will appear on screen for me. So again, I can see one that was on holidays. And as you can see, I now have both of my contractors. Now, before I can actually select my contractors to send any work orders or quote requests to, I need to utilize the drop-down menu here to select their email address. And again, contact information needs to be ensured that they have that email, because when we are sending quotes or work orders to contractors through FM, it's going to be sent via email, and there's a link that's attached to that email. They do not have a valid email address, they will not receive their work orders or their quote requests. Once I have selected my contractors, I have my property details. Now, with your property details, I can select my tenant on site. Right now, I do have Rory, and he is my primary contact for that property, so he will always be selected when I'm creating any quotes or work orders. I can remove Rory by utilizing my little X here. For Pilates X, if I would like to set up the site contact for them saying Jake, I can utilize the drop-down menu to do that, and that will be present, their contact information for my contractors. You then have your attachments. So if there are any files or photos that you would like to attach to this quote request, you can utilize your little icon here to add them in. Again, remember, if you do not want your contractor to see them, hide to contractor before uploading them from your desktop. The last section you have here is your agency contact. Now, right now it is defaulting to being me, as I am the one creating this quote request. However, if I am creating this on behalf of another agent within the database, I can utilize the drop-down menu here to select one of my other agents. Once I am happy with step 1 and 2, I will move on to step 3, which is our review section. So this is where I am going to review the information for all of my contractors that will be sent. So that's where, again, I'm going to double check the property, the tenant, and each supplier. I'll make sure my priority is still correct and also double check my line items and any additional notes. As you can see, it will give me a breakdown of my first contractor, so Excel Clean, and then also my second one for Lovely Land. Now, scrolling down to the very bottom, as you can see, they both do have these little icons here, or their little box for your mail option. So I'm just going to show you both so you can see it on screen. But this is essentially when we are going to be emailing this quote to the contractors. It does default to being the day you are creating the quote, but again, if this does not need to be sent out today for any reason, you can change the date by either clicking on the box or utilizing the little icon here. You also do have the ability to notify your property contact. So if I would like to notify Jake, I can tick on the box here, just in the bottom one. And as you can see, it ticks the top one on for me, so I don't have to do it twice. At the very bottom, our action button is to create. So again, once I'm happy with what I've entered in for my quote, I then can select to create that as a quote. Once that does load for us, once it does load, you'll be notified that it's now been successfully generated, and it should say that the email has been sent, but mine again, test database always fails. Once you have created your quote, it does automatically bring us into our quote tab. Now, again, in your quotes tab, this is where you can see all of the quotes you currently have within your database and what you may be working on. But I can already tell by the top 2 here that these are the ones that we've just created based on that creation date. Now, if I have received quotes back from my contractors and we are going to proceed with one or the other, I can do that on their behalf if the contractor is not wanting to utilize the link provided. They just want to email it to you instead. So if my contractor has returned and let me know how much they are quoting for the job, I can go into my quotes tab and then select on the contractor that's relevant to enter the quote in for them. So clicking anywhere in that line item is going to open up that quote. Now, as you can see, this is the quote information. So again, it's going to let you know the quote number, property information, tenant, and contractor. You can see that description to double check. And then at the very bottom, we have any comments that have been made. So if you are creating comments between yourself and the contractor, you can enter them in here. You can also choose to upload a new file and again, hide that file from the contractor if needed. Remember to add to save, otherwise that comment will not save. Any attachments can be attached here. Your activity log. So again, these are the activities of the current quote request. And then that email. So that's where it's going to let you know what emails have been sent. Mine, again, sitting as the red, letting me know that was failed to send. At the very top, you do have a couple of action buttons. So right now we are currently sitting as waiting for supplier answer. I have action buttons on my side, which are the little one here, which is your manual contractor view. So if my contractor has let me know that they do not want to upload this information directly into the link, they would rather send it to me, I can go into my manual contractor view to do it on their behalf, which we'll do in a moment. You have your email, and that allows you to resend the reminder, resend the quote, or even update that expiry date. So right now, my expiry date, as you can see, is the 15th of the 4th. Your other options are to update the status, and right now, until the quote has actually provided with a quote, so an amount, I can only cancel that. Now, again, if my contractor has emailed me through their quote and they do not want to upload it themselves, they want me to do it on their behalf, I can come into my quote and then select my manual contractor's view. This will take me into what they essentially would see. And this is the information. So again, it does give them a breakdown of the quote information. Any comments that have pulled through from the previous side, they will be able to see in here. And same with the attachments. They can attach anything and they'll also be able to see any attachments. Now, if your contractor has provided you with an amount, you will be able to submit that in. If they are rejecting it, you'll just hit reject. I am going to say that the contractor has provided me with an amount. So to submit my quote, I do need to utilize my little icon here to input that amount. That needs to be excluding GST. So again, the net amount will go into here and I'm just going to say it's $200. Selecting to add, it will then give me that breakdown of the net, GST, and the total. As long as I'm happy and that is correct from what they have provided, I then can submit that quotation. Once that has been submitted and it's updated, as you can see, my status does now change to answered, and I do not have any further action buttons on behalf of the contractor besides comments. To go back into our agent view, I am going to select on this little icon again, which is FM agent view now. That will take us back to our side. And this is now where I can further more into this quote. So that is where, again, I can either update my expiry date if needed, if it has lapsed, or I now can update my status. Now, again, because we have an answer that it's a $200 to complete the job, I can either create as a work order directly from this page, or I can cancel that quote if we do not want to proceed with this contractor. Now, for today's training purposes, I am going to create a work order based off this quote. So to do that, I am going to just hit create as work order. As you can see, it does again provide me with that pop-up note regarding the property, but it does provide me with that 3-step process once more. Now, with your 3-step process, because we have created a quote of a work order, it has pulled through all of the information that we've already entered in. So I'm just going to briefly skim over this. I won't go too much into detail. But again, the first thing is your work order details. So property, tenant, contractor. Make sure your line item is still correct and that amount. Moving on to step 2, again, we have our contractor. I am going to double check to make sure the contractor's information is still correct. Any attachments are still fine. And then also that property and agency information. Once I'm happy with step 1 and 2, again, step 3 is that review. So this is where I just want to double check to make sure everything is still relevant relating to your property, the contacts, as well as the tenant. And then also the contractor is still fine. Again, at the very bottom, we have our mail option. So you can send this directly from the system to the contractor via email, and it will be sent today. Again, if you do need to change this to a further out date, you can utilize the icon here or utilize your calendar icon. I can notify my site contact if I would like, and then I do have 2 action buttons. Now, my first action button on the left-hand side is to generate as repeating. So if I would like to create this as a repeating work order, so maybe each week, each month, or each year, I can pop that in here by selecting to generate repeating. Clicking on generate as repeating, it's going to ask me, when is this repeating? So is it happening each week, each month, or each year? I am going to leave it as monthly for now, but that is where, as you can see, what's the range of it repeating? So when does it start? When does it end? Just going to change the end date to next year just to provide you as much as possible. As you can see, it's our repeating pattern. It is going to be repeating on the 25th day of each month. Again, these are fields that you can modify if you would like. Your repeating order details. Now, it does say to add 1 day after the future work order as their required by date. So essentially what that does mean is this will be sent out the 25th of each month and they need to complete the job by the 26th. Now, if I would like to provide them with more time than that, I can do that by changing this 1 day to say 5. That means that it will get sent out on the 25th of each month and they have until the 30th to complete the job. Once I am happy with what I've selected in this space, I can then preview. Now, preview is going to provide you with an on-screen information. So it's going to let us know that this is repeating every single month, 25th of the month, when it starts and when it finishes. What their required by date is going to be. So again, 30th of each month. And then as you can see, it will give me a breakdown of each of the invoices that will be created as well. Each of the emails that will be created as well as the work orders that are created. So essentially, you do not need to create work orders each month for this. The system will do that based on this generating options. As you can see, I have my work order date. So the 25th of each month, the system will create a work order and it will also send that out to to the contractor. And then they need to complete it by the 30th. At the very bottom, you have your mail option. So again, send the email to the contractors. As long as that's ticked on, the system will create the work orders and send the emails to the contractors for you. At the very bottom, you then have your action buttons to create. So if you are creating this as repeating, you'll select to create. Otherwise, selecting back is going to take you back to this page. And that again is where you can double check to make sure what you are entering for that repeating is correct before submitting that. Now, because this one is just going to be a once-off work order for me, I am going to close that down and I'm just going to select to create. Again, creating is creating that as once of. Once that does load for me, as you can see, it lets me know that has now been successfully created and the email wasn't sent, but again, should send for you guys. And it does bring me into my work orders tab. Again, in your work orders tab, these are all of the work orders that you currently have within your database. And this is where you can work out of for the ones that contractors have completed, ones that are waiting for confirmation, or the ones that are currently in progress. Now I can see that the top one here, my order date as the 25th, is the one that we've just created. So again, clicking anywhere in that line item will take me into that work order. Again, in your work order, this is where you have the ability on your side to see all of the work order information. You can also see any comments that have pulled through, any attachments, that activity log, so what's currently sitting, and then the email log as well. Now, on your side currently, you do have a couple of action buttons. So again, the first is to go into your manual contractors view if you would like. You can email, which will allow you to send a reminder, resend the work order, or update that expiry. And again, your expiry date is shown here as the 24th of the 5th. On behalf of the contractors on the FM agent side, you also have the ability to confirm the work order for them, or you can reject. So again, if they have not gone in to tick this off themselves, but they've let you know that they're going out to do the job, you can come into the work order and select confirm. Selecting confirm will change your status from waiting confirmation to contractor has confirmed. As long as the contractor has confirmed, your update status now allows you to either mark the works as started, close the work order, or cancel. I am going to mark the words as started, and again, as you can see, it will change my status from confirmed to work in progress. Now, because my admin setting is turned on for the allowing contractors to upload invoices directly into the work order, they now, once the work is in progress, have the ability to do that on their side if they would like, and we also can do that on behalf of them. Now, you'll also notice if you come down to the bottom, you now have that invoice section. So this is where, if you would like to do it on their behalf, you can do it in your agent view if you would like, or you can also jump over into the manual contractors view. I'm going to do it in the agent view for today. So again, scrolling down to the bottom, I'm just going to hit upload invoice. That is going to bring us into this page here. Now, the first thing you would like to do when you are uploading an invoice on behalf of the contractor is make sure that you are utilizing the plus button here to add in their file. So I'll go with this. That is going to provide you with a side-by-side comparison of the invoice plus the information that you do need to enter in. Now, again, because we are working with a hypothetical invoice or not a real one, I'm just going to enter in the information without looking at the side section. But again, when you are doing this real, make sure you are checking the invoice. Now, the first thing you do need to enter in is your invoice number. So I'm just going to say 555. Invoice date has pulled through. It pulls through as today's date. But again, you do have the ability to modify this date by either clicking in the box or utilizing the little calendar icon. Your description has pulled through as our gardening as per our work order. Our account has pulled through again as per the work order. Now, because we never set up from and to dates when we created the quote or the work order, that has not pulled through. So this is where you will need to enter that in. You do need a from and to date to submit the invoice. So because it's just the 25th, I'm just going to make it the 25th to the 25th. Due date is what has pulled through again. Same with your tax rate, the net, and then we have our amount. Now our amount has our work order amount below, but this needs to be the amount as per invoice. So again, that's going to provide you with on-screen comparison as to if they have quoted and invoiced correctly to that $200 or if it has exceeded that. To enter the amount, again, type in the box, and then as you can see, you have the breakdown of the invoice as well as that work order. Once you are happy with what you've entered in this space, you then can submit. That will then feed through to from FM to Cirrus8 and sit in my automated invoicing section. Ready. Now that I have my invoice here, as you can see, it does give me a breakdown of my invoice, who it was uploaded by, what that status is, so approved. So again, it's now in AI, waiting for me to approve it to make it accessible in Cirrus8. I also have the ability to view those details, preview the file, or download if needed. Once I have invoiced, again, on the agent side, you can update your information and your status on behalf of the contractor. So again, to do that, I'm going to select update status. I now can mark as completed, close the work order, or cancel. I am going to mark as completed. That again is going to change my status to contracted, completed, invoiced, and low. And my last status I'm going to do is close that work order because it's no longer needing to be opened. Once you have completed and closed your work order, as you can see, my action buttons now are to either reopen that or again, go back into the manual contractors view. Perfect. So that is how we will create a quote and then feed that into a work order. And again, how we close off a work order within your database. Perfect. Now, the next section that we are going to touch on is our work request section. So that is at the top here. And this is also where we're going to find your external links. Now, your work request, this is where you will be able to see any tenant work request. So if you are providing them with access to their tenant portal or an external link, any work requests that they pop through, they are going to sit in this space for you to go in and then approve if you are going to be creating work orders off of those. You also have the ability, if a tenant has emailed you a work request, you do have the ability to come in here and add in and create a work request on their behalf via the email they've created. So to do that, again, clicking to create the work request, it's going to provide you with this on-screen information, and that's where you'll pick up all tenant information, the property, the contact, all of the parts that do have that asterisk, and then you can submit that again to yourself to approve. The other thing you do have in this space is your external links. Now, your external links are where you are going to create things such as a QR code for your property. So that is where you can create an external link that anyone is able to utilize to submit work request to or any maintenance to. Well, when you are creating a work request, we will select create link. Now, before I do that, I am going to provide you with just some navigations around this space, and then we'll create the link. The third thing you'll have in this space, again, is your filtering tool along the top, and that's where you can filter down if you do have a large list of external links. Otherwise, you can see them via the property, the tenant, or even the asset. You can see who and when they were created by, and then your action buttons in this space are first to go to that external link. So if I click that, this is what it's going to take me to. It will take me again to that document to upload my work request information. I can copy that URL to my clipboard. So if I wanted to copy that link to my clipboard to email out to anyone relating to the property, I can. I can download the QR icon, sorry. And this is what it's going to look like if it wants to open, sorry. Oh, sorry, it's opened on another page. There you go. This is what your QR image is going to look like. So again, anyone who's going to scan this, they will then get taken to that link and they can upload their information via that request. And the last is to delete any external links. So if you have any in there that are no longer required, you can delete them out. To create a new external link, I'm going to hit create link. That will then ask me to select my property. Now, when you are selecting the property, you then have the ability to leave it as a property. So if this external link is going to be left at a property level, I'm just going to select the property and then create. Now, the reason you may be looking at leaving it at a property level is if it is something like, you want to be able to print out QR codes to pop around the whole entire property. And then if there's any issues relating to the property, anyone is able to scan that and then submit them to you. You can leave it at a property level. If you select the tenant, then it will be at a tenant level. So that is going to be relevant to that tenancy only. So again, if they have a unit specifically within your property, that is where you can send them their external link and they can upload works that way. And then you also have asset. So you can select your property and your asset only. You do not have to select the tenant if you do not need to. Now, the asset, that again is where if you have an asset such as my HVAC on my property, I can create an external link such as a QR code for that HVAC. I then can print that QR code out, place it on the HVAC, and then anytime there is issues with that HVAC, anyone is able to scan that code and then send their work request or their maintenance request to me via that code, and it will sit in work requests. Perfect. Perfect. Well, that does conclude our training for today. If you are still within your training period and you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to your trainer. Alternatively, please contact our support team on support@cirrus8.com.au. Thank you guys so much for your time today, and I do hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Thank you.